Hi, this is Aaron Wilson. We're discussing Christian Kirk, the Texans' new wide receiver. The Texans acquired Christian from the Jacksonville Jaguars in exchange for a 2026 seventh-round draft pick. A good price to pay for a player that was going to be released. And this is a very familiar scenario for Texans fans. A year ago, Nick Caserio, knowing that the Cincinnati Bengals were going to move on from Joe Mixon, he acquired him in a trade for a seventh-round draft pick. Then he signed him to a 3-year, $27 million extension. Worked out very well. He made the Pro Bowl. And the Texans, while maybe not expecting Pro Bowl production out of Christian Kirk, now have a proven number 2 wide receiver to work in tandem with Nico Collins, their Pro Bowl wide receiver and clear-cut number 1 downfield target. And the Texans were fairly desperate to get a wide receiver, and here's why. Tank Dell had ACL repair surgery this week, and I reported and will reinforce that again today, that he's expected to miss the entire 2025 season. Stephon Diggs is heading to free agency, is expensive, and is coming off a torn ACL. So what are the drawbacks with Kirk and what are the pluses? I would say the drawbacks are health. He had a broken collarbone this past season, ended his season early after 8 games. And then the previous year had a core injury, tore his abdominal in a couple of places, pretty bad injury, but he came back from it and he had surgery and made a full recovery. He had some injury concerns also with the Arizona Cardinals. When healthy, just an outstanding route runner that has some big playability and can run after the catch, pretty elusive in the open field. His best season after signing that $72 million deal in free agency with the Jaguars, leaving the Cardinals, who picked him in the second round out of Texas A&M, he had 72 catches, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. So when he's healthy, he's a very good wide receiver. And the Texans were, obviously in need of someone to fill in at that spot. You don't want to head to free agency and have to get into some kind of bidding war. They were able to get him at a decent price. He's currently due $16.5 million in total compensation. That's $15.5 million base salary. There's a $500,000 workout bonus, and then there's another $500,000 available in per game active roster bonuses. There's $3 million in not likely to earn incentives, meaning incentives they don't expect him to reach for catches and yards. And I could see them extending the deal or restructuring it to try to get some more cap space. And they're still in on some other deals. But I also want to focus on Christian today and how this helps the offense. For C.J. Stroud, at the end of the season, he really didn't have a lot of guys to throw to. He had John Mechie III out there, Xavier Hutchinson. He had no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs. At one point, when the Texans had Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell all healthy at the same time, they had a 5-1 record. Then Nico pulls his hamstring and is out for 5 weeks. Then Stephon Diggs tears his ACL against the Indianapolis Colts. And then Tank Dell has this horrific, gruesome knee injury, dislocates his knee, tears his ACL, his LCL, and his MCL, along with some meniscus damage. And now Dr. Walter Lowe has repaired all those. I'm told the surgery was successful, and the outlook is good for a full recovery eventually, barring any setbacks. On Kirk, what you get with him, he's 28 years old, he's a little younger, and there were some false flags out there about other wide receivers, so let's clear that up. They were not in on Deebo Samuel, who's now with the Washington Commanders. So that was really agent hype, I would say, that was put out there by a national reporter, and he wound up going to the Commanders. In terms of Kirk, and this is a positive, he wanted to be here. I was told by a source and actually saw good evidence of the fact that he wanted to come here, that he was extremely interested in becoming a Texan. This is something of a homecoming for him. Although he grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, he did play 3 years of college football at the road at College Station, so they get an Aggie on the team. But this is something he was interested in, thought it might happen in free agency. Instead, it happens via trade. So good job by Nick Caserio to add a wide receiver, and there was some speculation about DK Metcalf. No thanks for a first-round pick, third-round pick, and a trade, plus he wants to make $30 million a year. Absolutely not. So where this leaves the Texans after restructuring Nico Collins' contract and freeing up $9.8 million in cap space is they have more moves to make. But let's go back to a couple that I've already reported on. We haven't had a chance to discuss. Dare Ogunbowale, good special teams player, solid third down back. They get him at an affordable price, 1 year, $2 million. Good depth piece there to have a Dare back on the roster. One of Frank Ross's special teams coordinator's favorite players. And also today reported that Kurt Hinish, good backup defensive tackle, has been a solid, steady guy since signing with them as an undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame. He gets a 1 year deal with a max value of $2.35 million and a base value of $1.8 million. So some more depth at defensive tackle position. They're still interested in Sheldon Rankins, as I reported first on Sunday night on KPRC2 Sports Sunday, that they're in definitely an interest level with Rankins, and it could happen, a potential reunion with Sheldon. They were outbid last year on him. They were at about $11 million, and he wound up at $13 million on a 2 year, $26 million deal with the Bengals. He's recovered from the illness that forced him to be placed on the non-football illness list at the end of last season. And so he's fully healthy and expecting to have a healthy market. If the Texans don't pull the trigger on Rankins, I think he'll sign with someone else and fairly quickly. So look for the Texans to continue to explore that possibility. They aren't tendering their restricted free agents. They didn't do that with Kurt Hinish. It's going to be the same thing with Jake Hansen, but they would like Hansen back on a similar type of contract, lower than the tender, and that's how they got Hinish under contract. Tegan Cucciarano will not be tendered as a restricted free agent and will probably hit free agency. I expect that for multiple free agents that I've checked in about, including Stephon Diggs, including Delshon Phillips, including Devin White, including a lot of the free agents. Robert Woods, per sources, is interested in coming back, and the Texans have some interest in having him back. I could see that happening at some point as a depth piece, probably as the fourth or fifth receiver. So Robert Woods, elder statesman, good locker room guy, and solid golfer. Recently had a chance to go to a golf event with Robert, Upper Deck Golf over at Dyken Park. Feels weird to say it. Always known as Minute Maid Park, but now it's changed their name, different corporate structure. But yeah, a lot of fun, Upper Deck Golf, and got a chance to hit a couple of golf balls. So that was cool. And that was right before the scouting combine. Other things I think that the Texans will look to do in free agency. They do need some depth at safety. So keep an eye on whether they bring back Eric Murray, MJ Stewart, or shop around. Safeties are not cheap, but I think that the Texans could do some business with either MJ and or Eric Murray for depth. Jimmy Ward, I get a lot of questions about Jimmy. I think even though his contract's guaranteed for this year, I could see them still possibly moving on. We'll see what happens with Jimmy. That's someone I'm monitoring to see how they go forward or not with Jimmy Ward. So for now, on the roster, and we'll see how they go forward. I get lots of questions about the offensive line. So there's not a lot of cap savings in cutting any of the offensive linemen, whether it be a Shaq Mason or a Titus Howard. Might they look to lower Shaq Mason's cap figure? It's tough to do that because of the guarantees in the contract. It was originally a 3 year, $36 million deal. With Titus Howard, there's a little more flexibility depending on how they want to go forward. Do they see him as a guard? Do they see him as a right tackle? Pretty high cap figure for a guard. Could see them also adding a guard in free agency. I've checked on all the top guards that are available, guys not named Trey Smith, the Chiefs franchise player. So whether it's like a Will Fries or James Daniels or an Aaron Banks, doesn't look like they're in that market. So I could see them looking for a less expensive free agent guard. So watch for them to add some kind of depth piece in free agency and then possibly address it in the draft as well. But one thing's for certain, they've got to be coached better. That's the hope with Cole Popovich, and they have to play better, and that's on the players. So, it's a performance-based business, and it wasn't good enough last year, as we've talked about ad nauseum, 52 sacks. Nowhere was it more evident on display as a deficiency than the divisional round playoff loss to the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. 8 sacks, 14 quarterback hits, simply not good enough, unacceptable, and C.J. Stroud doesn't have a lot of chance to succeed when the pass blocking isn't there. So I expect that Kaylee and Cole Popovich put their heads together. They're both Dante Scarnecchia proteges, and let's get some of those Dante Scarnecchia strategy and blocking schemes into the Texans offense and keep C.J. Stroud standing and throwing the football accurately the way we know he can. So a good day for the Texans to get Christian Kirk. That's a solid add and a player that's only 28, who I think if the health is there, they can get a lot of production out of him. They can scheme some things. They can do some of the stuff that they do with the Rams and with the Patriots that Nick Caley is well versed in. And promote one of my articles, by the way. Nick Caley at www.clicktohouston.com. I did an interview with Regan Scaife, who was his college head coach when he was a student assistant at John Carroll University. Everybody knows about the John Carroll University connections all over the NFL, and especially with the Texans, with Nick Caserio being from there. That's his alma mater, along with Frank Ross and their pro personnel director, DJ Debick. So as Regan Scaife, the retired former JCU head coach, he called the Texans the JCU of the South. And he's right. This is a place where people from that Division III Cleveland area school, University Heights, Ohio, tend to migrate. And Nick is the first. And he's been hiring a lot of fellow alums. So they have that in common. And usually what you get with the JCU guy is a hard worker, a smart guy that played football, Jerry Shaplinsky. You're remiss not to mention him. Another JCU guy, their senior offensive assistant and passing game specialist. So a key hire. And Nick and Jerry and Dave Ziegler, previously the Raiders GM, all played for JCU, where Nick was a record-setting quarterback. But I digress. So look at where they stand now. The depth chart looks a lot better. I know a lot of people were hoping for Devontae Adams, who likely heads to the West Coast or wherever Aaron Rodgers winds up. It didn't seem like they were going to get into any kind of bidding war for him. And no DK Metcalf. And Tyler Lockett, didn't hear about them really exploring that as well. And Lockett, I think, will have a good market too. Very good football player, but 4 years older than Christian Kirk. So in free agency, follow the calendar and follow the ages. Younger players get paid the most in free agency. It's a good axiom to remember as we head into next week's legal tampering period starting on Monday. And then the start of free agency, full out free agent, see where guys can sign contracts and they can announce deals, all that stuff. Look for a flurry of activity. We'll keep you updated here on my channel. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What do you guys think of the Christian Kirk move? What do you want to see in free agency? And hey, excited to hear the feedback from you guys. Appreciate everybody that's joining the channel. And we're up to about 4,200 people so far and change. And I'd love to eventually see this grow to 10,000, 15,000, 20, 25,000. So yeah, it's free. Please like and subscribe if you're the first time watching this. And look forward to our next conversation. And I think the Texans will be definitely very relevant this offseason, but I'm not expecting them to be the big spenders that they were last year with Danielle Hunter and Azeez Al-Shaair. And they've got to save their pennies because down the road, and we'll get more into this in future videos, the Derek Stingley Jr. contract extension is coming. I would expect that to happen for him to be the highest paid corner in the NFL at some point. I think there's some difference of opinion on the value on Jalen Petrie. They are interested in doing an extension. We'll see what that number winds up at and if they can reach a financial compromise. Nothing imminent on either of those. These are sort of the back burner kind of things on the agenda for negotiations for Nick Caserio. And I expect another busy offseason as the Texans look to defend as AFC South champs and as DeMeco Ryans reiterated again at the Combine. Take the next step. They're the only team in the AFC that's never been in the AFC Championship game. I know that everyone associated with the Texans is tired of that. 0-6 in the divisional round. And there's only one way to get better. You got to plan ahead now and improve the roster, improve the coaching, and get to a point where they're more competitive, not just in the division, but when you play the elite teams, teams like the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs. Until next time, I'm Aaron Wilson, signing off with our latest free agent report. And yeah, please keep it locked for all future updates.